Everybody's a Ferrari fan. Even if they're not, they are a Ferrari fan.
The most successful team in Formula One history, the team that is seen as by far and away the most prestigious team on the grid, has slowly turned into a laughingstock and a meme generator over the last few seasons. And in Formula One, when things go wrong, all eyes turn to the team principal. Another one bites the dust in Maranello. 8 years, soon to be 5 team principals, 0 championships won. What is going on behind the scenes at Ferrari? I think before we delve into why Ferrari have changed up their team principal so much in the last few seasons, we have to understand actually what the team principal does, because it's actually quite a complicated and weird job on the Formula One grid. In its most simplistic terms, the team principal is the boss of the Formula One team. Everything that team does has to filter through them, and the buck usually stops with them as far as the Formula One team's performance is concerned. But it's important to say that they're not operating in isolation. Although they are the public face of the team in press conferences and they give endless press interviews in which they speak on the team's behalf, both away from the track and during race weekends, the big decisions are made by people they have hired to be underneath them. There are so many moving parts in Formula One that the team principal can't be everywhere. They're not an engineer, a strategist, an analyst. They're just overseeing all of these things and instilling people into those roles that they can trust. Therefore, the most important skill they have is people management and the ability to actually shape a culture, build a winning environment, and structure the team to get the absolute best out of every single department, from the drivers all the way down. So as much as they're first to be blamed when something is going wrong, it's also probably the most difficult role in the team, as you're in the firing line for any mistakes that anyone else may have made, as well as your own mistakes. Now add on to that pressure working for the most successful team in Formula One history in Ferrari, and a team that is synonymous with Formula One in so many different ways. That is a very, very difficult job you have on your hands. So who are these 5 brave characters that Ferrari have had at the helm over the last 8 years? First, they had Stefano Domenicali, who you may know as the current CEO of Formula One, but roll back the clocks and the Italian was the last team principal of the Scuderia Ferrari Formula One team to actually win a Constructors' Championship in 2008. But that was as good as it got for him. He was in charge for another 7 years until 2014, but couldn't guide the team to any more championships, mainly because Sebastian Vettel was just winning everything in sight for most of that time. As Ferrari struggled to keep pace with the Red Bull team, the 2014 regulation change looked to be that ray of hope for Ferrari to come back to winning ways, but as we now know, it was Mercedes that would take advantage and become a dominant force on the Formula One grid, and after just 3 races in the Formula One 2014 season, Domenicali stepped away from his role at Ferrari saying, "It's time to make an important change. As boss, I take the responsibility, as I always have, for the situation we are going through. This decision has been taken with the aim of doing something to shake things up." And shake things up, they certainly did, by bringing in Marco Mattiacci for 1 season and 1 season only in 2014. It was a brief stint as team principal, only managing to keep the role for 8 months, but he actually made some incredibly big decisions for the team. He oversaw the Scuderia's divorce with Fernando Alonso and signed Sebastian Vettel to replace him. He oversaw the complete rework and manufacture of the Ferrari engine for 2015. But alongside all the good that he did for the team, the 2014 season was the team in red's worst season since 1992. They failed to win a race, they finished 4th in the Constructors' Championship, they were 581 points adrift of Mercedes, and looked like a team in freefall. To what extent that's Mattiacci's fault is very debatable. He came in, shook things up in Italy, and then had to go, making way for Maurizio Arrivabene, the man who oversaw the majority of the Vettel era at Ferrari, and of course brought in now number 1 Charles Leclerc. But the ending of Arrivabene's tenure does have parallels to what we've seen this year with Binotto. He took the team from struggling throughout the 2014 season to getting a few wins under their belt in 2015, guiding Seb to a 3rd place finish, and then of course 2017, 2018, Vettel would be the closest championship contender to Hamilton, coming 2nd in both of those years. Despite having the quicker car for considerable periods of those seasons, a series of driver errors from Vettel were compounded by the team mistakes that saw their title challenge just slowly drift away, and Hamilton came out on top by a considerable margin in both cases. Criticism was thrown at the team left, right and centre as they fell apart operationally. They failed to institute clear team orders during races and often were making the wrong tyre choices in qualifying and races throughout the season. The team felt like it had become fractured. Maurizio didn't hold back with criticism of those around him when Ferrari were faltering, and it felt like He almost forced Ferrari's hand as Arrivabene and Binotto butted heads a lot during their time at Ferrari together, and ultimately Ferrari wanted to keep hold of Binotto more than they wanted to keep hold of Arrivabene. So even though Arrivabene had guided the team back towards the top, his inability to take that final step and win a championship, alongside his animosity internally, cost him his job. And as I said earlier, when you're the team principal, everything stops with you. If you're not happy with the team around you and you're not happy with the way the team has been run, you are massively at fault for that. Arrivabene brought this win culture, yes, but also this culture of blame, and that was just something that Ferrari couldn't have. Which leads us nicely into his replacement, the man that Ferrari was so keen to keep hold of in Binotto. After his help producing an engine and a car that got Ferrari back to winning ways, he would be given the job of team principal from 2019 until this season. And honestly, he felt like the perfect man for the job. He had been with the team since the 90s, seen all the ups and downs that they have been through, and many say that he was the real mastermind behind those successful years that Arrivabene presided over. It was all coming up Milhouse. That wasn't until the season actually started. 2019 was so bad for Ferrari. The car that they brought was just so far off the pace that when they tried to fix it, they made drastic changes that didn't really work. That made them panic more and more, spiraling their season into an abyss. And whilst the team was spiraling, a frustrated Vettel, after coming so close in years previous to a title, reached boiling point. Vettel was contracted until the end of the 2020 season, but the relationship between him and the team was obliterated during the 2019 season. Vettel, when leaving the team, was quoted as saying, "In order to get the best possible result in this sport, it's vital for all parties to work in perfect harmony. The team and I have realized that there is no longer a common desire to stay together beyond the end of this season." Definitely not the start Binotto would have been hoping for, having the team number one and four-time world champion become unmotivated and annoyed over his first season in charge. I mean, I imagine the meeting after Leclerc and Vettel collided in Brazil wasn't an easygoing one. But Ferrari clearly had their faith in Binotto. He stayed on and then had the 2020 season, which is another incredibly horrible season where Vettel almost made it his mission to do everything that he possibly could, basically, to piss off Ferrari, and still stayed in charge again after all of that. He gave Charles Leclerc a mega contract, he brought in Carlos Sainz alongside him, clearly looking at the future. Like, he didn't panic and bring in, I don't know, Kimi Raikkonen or Fernando Alonso again and just go for a driver that had already won championships. I think I've said this many times now about many of these Ferrari team principals, but he slowly started to put the pieces back together again. And it's definitely a cycle that they've got going on at Ferrari. 2021, they did really well. They finished in the top three and had an eye on the regulation change for 2022. And this season oversaw what could have been a title challenge had it not been for Max Verstappen having one of the best seasons ever. Although alongside Verstappen doing incredibly well, we do have to say that Ferrari really didn't help themselves. Again, they had to give Leclerc a platform to show the pace that he really has, but engine reliability issues lead into grid penalties as well as DNFs, and of course the mistakes that the team made didn't give him enough of a platform to really mount a title challenge. It really did all go wrong, but Binotto was very passive about these mistakes. Arrivabene, who preceded him, would lash out at the team after a poor result, which I think made Binotto actually go too far the other way, in that he never blamed the team for anything. So many times in 2022, he did interviews where he said the team had done nothing wrong, whereas it was clear as day that they'd got the strategy wrong in Monaco, for instance, and cost Charles Leclerc a win, or had clear reliability problems after a double DNF in Baku. But Binotto never saw the Ferrari mistake. He always defended the team. He wholeheartedly stood by their decisions. I feel like there was an optimal middle ground somewhere between Arrivabene lashing out at the team and Binotto being too kind. Although even with these mistakes, Ferrari's Leclerc came home second in the Drivers' Championship, and the team held on to second place in the Constructors' Championship. But it wasn't enough for Ferrari and Binotto, as the team have parted ways in the last few weeks. Binotto said, "With the regret that this entails, I have decided to conclude my collaboration with Ferrari. I'm leaving a company that I love, which I have been part of for 28 years, with the serenity that comes from that conviction that I have made every effort to achieve the objectives set." Which means that Ferrari are in search of a fifth team principal in just 8 years. Who will take the helm is yet to be seen. Vasseur, Seidel, Braun, Steiner are all being talked about, but whoever takes over is going to have an incredibly difficult job where even coming second in the championship is not enough. If anything, coming second in the championship leads to you being shipped out of the door. And in a 2023 season where Red Bull will be strong, Mercedes are looking to be back at the top of the standings, even Alpine and Aston Martin will be taking big moves to improve, taking over Ferrari will be the most difficult job on the grid. Competition is high, expectations are higher, and anything could happen. I'd love to know who you think will actually take over at Ferrari in 2023 and how the team will actually get on next season in the comments down below. Whilst you're down there, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you next time.